This is just a bunch of Keystone cops that are just trying to buy a little time so they can prepare personally. There is no amount of money that could save Europe, let alone a country like Greece. I mean, Greece is literally at a minus 15% GDP clip right now. Companies are closing. There's social unrest. There's no money left. They are going to leave the euro, and all those default swaps and all the bad debt from them is going to go, as will Spain's and Italy's. And France, why it's so comical that France is meeting Germany to discuss the other pigs when they're just as bad. And Germany holds all of the French debt, and France holds all the debt of Italy and Spain and Greece. They're all going. Everyone knows that. And like you said, it could go very, very quickly. Now, will the German Constitutional Court vote against the ESM and the Fiscal Pact? I would say the odds of that are pretty low because governments don't tend to shoot themselves in the head. The markets tend to do it for them. But anything could happen. And certainly September 12th, as Gerald Celente says, is easy to remember because it's the day after September 11th.
Yeah, Celenti's an interesting guy. He always hits the nail on the head, and so do you. That's what we love about you guys. It's just people that can speak with candor and honesty about this rampant criminality. This system is such a joke at this point. And I think a lot of people, Andy, are going to get badly hurt when this system finally collapses because, as you've said and so many others have said, it can't be stopped. This collapse can't be stopped. I wish it could. I mean, I really do, because I don't want to see people get hurt, and I sure don't want to see, the grocery store shelves go bare. But I think that may be the road that we're headed on, and if it can't be stopped, there are lots of people in denial that are going to be destroyed. Why don't you paint a picture for us? What do you see over the next year or two? How bad could this thing get?
Right, and I like to be cautious about saying stuff. There's a lot of people out there that say with confidence, I know what's going to happen, and the fact is no one knows what's going to happen. Everything here is unprecedented, other than the one universal, that the fiat currencies always collapse. I mean, this is no different, except that it's now on a global basis, as this is the first time in history that not a single currency on Earth is backed by anything. And not only that, we have a completely intermeshed international economy. So, what happens here happens in Japan and China and Europe and South America. So everything will happen like a chain of dominoes. And, ultimately, to get to the promised land of a gold standard, which is the only thing that works, we're going to have total fiat currency collapse. And when people say, well, we'll wake up one morning and they'll devalue the dollar. No, it's not about devaluing the dollar. It's about the dollar dying. The whole problem was that the government, first they made it $35, then they said that it's not worth anything. And, what's going to happen is the currencies are going to go. And when they go, as you say, things like shortages of food and lack of confidence in the government and social unrest, that's the natural course of things. And, people say, well, the government will then confiscate all the gold and all that. No, they won't, because the vendors won't take anything else but gold. You're not going to be able to tell them they're going to take paper when the whole problem was that there was that the paper no one trusted in the first place. So I do not know what will happen, but I expect, I prepare for the worst. I hope for something better than the worst. But I am not hopeful, and frankly, I would not be surprised if it happens within the next 3 to 6 months.
You and I we've been speaking together for quite a while. When did we do our first interview? Probably better than a year ago, huh?
It was October when I started with Miles Franklin.
I guess the reason I ask that is because have you seen any evidence in your personal life or your professional life that more people are waking up and buying physical gold and silver? And the reason I ask is because I haven't. I'm surrounded by people that make a decent living, and few of them are interested, and even fewer of them have woken up to what we're talking about here. So our audience that's listening to us right now is a very informed and a very, very tiny audience, Andy. What have you been seeing? I mean, do you see any evidence that people are finally waking up?
Well, in my personal life, I haven't seen much of a change. But I'm a little biased by my blog because I spend so much time on it. And in the blog, I would say that the growth is exponential. I mean, it's getting very big, and I'm getting up to 30 to 50 emails a day of people who believe in what I believe, and I think it's because of a referral and word of mouth about the topic. So I do think that there is an awakening going on in the world, but again, you're starting from a very, very small base of people who understand and believe. So if 1% of the population believed and now it's 2%, well, that's great for the extra 1%, but there's still 98% out there that are completely in denial or have no interest or understanding.
Well, what I want to do is I want to paint a picture for those who might be listening to whom this information is new. So if you've been handed this interview, if somebody sent you this link and you're listening for the first time, maybe you're waking up. You're waking up enough to listen to what Andy and I are talking about, but maybe you still haven't bought any physical precious metals at all. Andy, I just want you to help those people understand that this is still a rarefied opportunity. I mean, at 30, at 35, physical silver is so incredibly rare. I mean, how much is there of physical silver above ground, Andy? Somewhere like 1 billion ounces is like a $30 billion market. It's infinitesimally small.
Right. Well, it's only about 0.5% of the size of the entire gold market. That's how small it is, and it's contracting. Each year there's been a supply-demand deficit for 15 years at least, and it's only going to get worse now that, industrial demand is dramatically higher than it ever was, and of course, investment demand is going to go exponential. That's why the USGS, in fact, the United States Geological Service a few years ago said they thought silver would be the first extinct element from the periodic table, and they weren't even referring to investment demand. So from a standpoint of value, I don't think I've ever seen anything that's cheaper. But more importantly, when you're buying precious metals, you are not buying because you want them to go up. You are buying them to preserve value against everything else which is declining. It's a huge difference in understanding, and that's the way that, once you own a physical coin and you hold it in your hand and you do a little research on it, you realize that it's money, and you immediately understand the difference between paper and physical metal. And as a result, you realize that by holding it, you are not holding a volatile investment, as the propaganda will tell you. You're holding real money that does not go anywhere. No matter what happens to the paper price, that coin does not go anywhere. And over time, it will continue to gain value against fiat currencies always.
Thanks for helping me connect the dots, because what I'm trying to tell people is this. Everything in this financial market is built on paper, and everything is fake. Andy, we had a breaking news story that we posted on SGT Report that says, here's the headline, J.P. Morgan Chase admission, schedule of loans purchased from WAMU does not exist. No evidence of transferring ownership of loans from WAMU to Chase. And our good friend Vermont Trotter, who's an expert in mortgage fraud, he sent me an email saying this, quote, the trusts are all empty. The master loan doc contractually allows for the hypothecation and rehypothecation of the assets. Hypothecation is a legal term meaning to pledge, but not to deliver an asset. To hypothecate means there is no true sale of the asset. To rehypothecate means it can be pledged multiple times and again, never have a true sale. No one owns anything, end quote. This is what we're talking about. You have the opportunity to get some physical silver, which is one of the few precious real assets on planet Earth.
Well, J.P. Morgan, again, I think I did a rant a few weeks ago where I went through the Internet and found all of the headlines that said J.P. Morgan fraud. And, I mean, it was incredible because there couldn't have been less than 20 separate instances. And I'm talking about 20 separate markets, whether it's LIBOR or MF Global or silver, you name it, okay? But again, to people, like I'm saying, you have to understand the difference between money and currency. People need to separate, to not separate J.P. Morgan and the government, because J.P. Morgan is the government. So when you read a headline that says J.P. Morgan manipulating LIBOR or J.P. Morgan manipulating silver, it's really saying the government is manipulating LIBOR and manipulating silver. And that's the whole point. It's them against you. I wrote a piece called They Want You Dead a few weeks ago, and I mean it. And I'm talking about not just financially, they'd rather have you off the planet. So you have to save yourself. You have to protect yourself from these frauds that are coming from all angles. And I assure you, they are going to be coming from far more angles as the economy gets worse, as inflation gets worse, and as the people in charge get worse.
Well, as usual, you're on fire today, and we really appreciate your perspective. Is there anything you want to leave us with before we let you go?
I want you to protect yourself. But again, it's all aspects of life. Precious metals is the way to protect your wealth, but you also have to think of ways to protect your family, your friends, your other possessions from the forces that are coming from around you. Again, when paper currencies collapse, it's well documented throughout history. There is a lot of pain and a lot of misery and poverty and probably war, government decree, and death that is involved. And that's why if you don't wake up and start to think about protecting yourself, you could be one of the 98 or 98.9% that are in the same boat, the sinking ship.
Well, Andy Hoffman of MilesFranklin.com, why don't you tell people how they can find your blog, Andy?
Right, MilesFranklin.com, one of the largest bullion dealers in the country. If you go to the website, you can sign up for our 2 free daily blogs. One is mine, one is David Schechtman's. He's the founder of Miles Franklin, and also the archive is there for going all the way back.
You know, one of the things that's cool about you guys is you take personal calls. I know Andy Schechtman will take personal calls if people want to buy bullion. Do you want to give us a phone number people can call if they want to buy some physical silver or gold?
Sure, 800-822-8080.
Okay. Well, as always, Ranting Andy Hoffman of MilesFranklin.com. Thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And let's stay in close touch, because if we start seeing these $4 and $5 a day moves, we need to talk again.
Absolutely.
All right, Andy. Take care.
Thanks, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that does it, guys. Thanks so much for watching and spreading this information with friends and family. And check out my new website, thelibertymill.com. Real news, 24/7. Thanks for watching.